My name's Elka Ray. I'm a crime writer, and in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein sexual abuse scandal, I'd like to read you a short story I wrote about workplace sexual abuse. And although it's a work of fiction, it was inspired by an incident that I experienced at work as a young woman. The story is set in Vietnam, where I live, and I just wanted to say that this kind of abuse of power happens everywhere. The title of the story is Survivors. When Professor Sun calls me into his office, I'm excited to meet him. He's the editor-in-chief and a living legend. Now in his mid-80s, he fought beside Ho Chi Minh as a teenager. While I'm nervous, he looks kind, with a round face and thick glasses. His office is small and smells of cigarette smoke. On the wall, beside the official portrait of Ho Chi Minh, there's a photo of General Zapp and Professor Sun as young men. The professor waves me towards a chair and pours tea. He asks if I like my new job. I just started working at the Vietnam Industrial and Economic Window, VIEW, 3 weeks ago. We've talked for a few minutes when he says he's hard of hearing. Sit here, he says, patting his knees. I hesitate, but comply. It feels weird to sit on his lap, as though I'm a little girl, but the professor looks pleased. Yes, that's better. I can hear you now, he says. I'm uncomfortable, but what can I do? I can't disobey Professor Sun. He's the editor-in-chief, and I'm just a cub reporter. He's telling me about fighting in the jungle when I feel his hand on my thigh. I'm wearing a skirt, and his fingers slide under it. I want to jump up, but I'm too shocked. Professor Sun is 82 years old and a war hero. It crosses my mind that I'm imagining things because he's still talking normally. His fingers wriggle under the elastic of my panties. I wanted to get painter, he says, but then I joined the resistance and there was no time. Sometimes I'd sketch late at night. Then my backpack caught fire and my notebook was burned. He shrugs. That's fate. When his finger touches my private parts, I squirm, but by then his other arm is around my waist. He's stronger than he looks, and I'm too stunned to scream or push him away. So I just sit there, feeling like it's a bad dream. He sticks his finger a little ways in and moves it around. A lot of soldiers got sick, he says. We didn't have enough food. When supplies ran low, we had to eat roots and grubs, and there was no medicine. Normally, I'd be fascinated, but now I'm too shocked, like this is happening to someone else. There's a clock on the wall, and I stare at it. The leeches were the worst, continues Professor Sun. Each step you take, they feel your vibrations and come to find you. Then he pulls out his finger and licks it. I blink. Did he really do that? I twist away and stand up. My whole body is shaking. The professor looks up at me and smiles, dark eyes magnified by his thick glasses. His face appears cocky, almost boyish. He says, as though he's just sampled some fine wine. You're a good girl, Tuyet. My name is Nguyet, but I don't correct him. I tug down my skirt and mumble that I have to get back to work. I feel sick and dizzy. I don't tell my boyfriend because he'd get upset, and of course I say nothing to my parents. To get me this job, my dad had to ask an old army buddy for a favor. Many of my university friends are still jobless. Since I have to tell someone, I confide in my best friend, Cha, who works at the state-owned tobacco company. Ew, what a sicko, says Cha. I blow my nose, but I'm still crying. From now on, you'd better wear pants to work, says Cha, who's always been practical. Then she shrugs. But it could be worse. Remember what happened to Mi Ling? I nod. Our friend Mi Ling was fired from her job just before Tet for refusing to sleep with her boss. She'd lost her year-end bonus. Professor Sun is probably too old to have sex, says Cha. She wrinkles her nose. That old goat. Just try to stay away from him. And for God's sake, wear trousers. I take Cha's advice and wear long pants to work. Maybe it's a coincidence, but I notice that none of the women in my office wear skirts, except for Mrs. Home, who's in her 50s and has a mustache. On Friday evening, I join some colleagues for after-work drinks. There are 6 guys and 3 girls at the table. The guys have had a lot to drink when a graphic designer named Cam makes a joke about Professor Sun's fondness for young ladies. While the men laugh, the girls at the table look uncomfortable. I want to ask them if the professor has touched them too, but don't dare. They might not believe me or say it was my fault. The next time I see Professor Sun is at the magazine's 10th anniversary party. Luckily, there are a lot of people around. The work tables in the editorial office have been cleared off and stuffed end to end to make one long table. Because I'm unimportant, I'm placed down at the far end, while Professor Soane's in the middle, flanked by the deputy editor and some VIP from the Ministry of Culture. Even though I'm nowhere near him, just the sight of Professor Soane makes my stomach churn. I'm not even looking forward to the cream cake that's being served. I don't want to be here. Professor Soane makes a speech about teamwork and dedication. Everyone claps. He cuts the cake. Pieces are passed down. I've just gotten my piece when someone yells. The deputy editor is on his feet. He looks aghast. Words pass down. There are peanuts in the cake, and Professor Soane is allergic. My colleague, Ha, who was responsible for ordering the cake, is in tears. She insists the bakery promised it was nut-free. Luckily, the deputy editor noticed before the professor took a bite and collapsed. Professor Soane seems amused by all the fuss. I guess he survived worse threats during wartime. The party's almost over when Professor Soane announces a surprise. He's decided to introduce a work uniform in gray and blue, the magazine's masthead colors. The men will wear a blue shirt and gray pants, and the women will wear a short-sleeved blue blouse and a gray skirt. The cake sinks to the bottom of my stomach. I can't believe it, I tell Cha after work. No other magazines have staff uniforms. Bad luck, you're pretty, says Cha. Maybe you should look for another job after all. I can't, I say. What would I tell my parents? When I buy the bottle, I don't plan to use it. I hide it in the back of my desk, just in case, the way you might put a steel rod under your bed in case of intruders. Just knowing it's there makes me feel better. I try to do my work well, but not too well. The last thing I want is to be up for some award or have Professor Soane draw me aside to congratulate me. First one, and then two of my female colleagues quit. Their departure leaves me paranoid. I find myself peering around doorways before stepping into the hall, just in case the professor's around. Sometimes, at the sound of footsteps, I run into the women's toilet to hide, even though it stinks in there. So when my boss says Professor Soane wants to see me, I panic. I consider walking out and never coming back, but where would I go? I think of all the trouble my dad went to get me this job. There's no way I could explain. I'm stuck here. The bottle's small. Holding it in my fist, only the lid sticks out. I hurry to the washroom and lock myself in a stall. When I pull up my skirt, my knees shake. I pour a little oil onto my fingers and rub, starting up in the hair and moving down. I know my favorite pink panties will be stained, which is a shame. I wish I'd worn an old pair today. As I walked towards Professor Soane's office, my thighs feel slippery. His door's shut. I take a deep breath and knock softly. Seeing me, he shoves his glasses up his snub nose and smiles. Ah, there you are. Come in. The lock clicks behind me. I feel wetness between my legs and my heart high and tight in my chest. I can hear a clock tick and a truck rattling by on the road. I look around. The same chipped green paint and cracked Art Deco tiles. The same portrait of Ho Chi Minh. The same black and white photo of General Zapp and Professor Soane, young, thin, and intense, in the jungle. Today, the room has only one chair. The professor takes a seat and smiles. He licks his lips, pats his lap. Come and sit here. Even now, in his 80s, he's got the air of a commander. He can't even imagine I might disobey. I hesitate. I don't have to do this. I could walk out or scream. But no, some fights must be faced. And like the professor, I'm not one to run. As I take a seat, I wonder if the peanut smell is too strong. Then I spread my legs a little. So, thank you for listening. You can find more of my work at elkaray.com. Okay, bye-bye.